job description for what Casey Dixon does on a contract basis for the IDA?
Oh, I don't recall.
Was Casey Dixon now the person who is the steward of the public money and responsible for the continuum grant?
Casey Dixon, the person who is the steward.
What do you mean by steward? Let me rephrase the question. Is Casey Dixon be the project administrator for the IDA on the continuum grant?
Yes.
So she's responsible for making sure that the public grant money is used appropriately, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to take a 5-minute break while he does.
All right.
Okay, that concludes the questions that I have. Some of the other lawyers may have some questions for you to follow up.
I'll try to keep it brief. Some of these questions that Mr. Brooks asked, I think, might have been clarified in subsequent questions, but I'm going to ask them anyway because I thought one of your answers might have been confusing. You were asked if there were two separate boards, and I believe the response was no, there were not. Are there two separate boards, and we're talking about the EDC and the IDA with dual membership? Yes. And there has always been two separate boards, correct? Yes, but some of the members of the EDC have been members of the IDA. Common membership at some point, but two separate boards, correct? Yes. Do you know if the county manager is actually an employee of the EDA, or is he just charged statutorily with administrative duties? He's charged with administrative duties. Okay. You testified that you reviewed records that were provided by LifeSync in your truck. Why? Because of my concern over those records being public records and the fact that they weren't that detailed. It was convenient and easy to do. You have acknowledged viewing the records that are part of Exhibit 6, the deposition, correct? Yes. Did you see anything in those records when you reviewed them that caused you concern over expenses being spent inconsistent with the requirements of the agreement? No. Were the expenses that you viewed consistent with the draw schedule that had been approved by the IDA? Yes. Did you treat what you saw in Exhibit 6, C1 through 75, as confidential? Yes. Why is that? Because I believe it was confidential, proprietary business information. Okay. Do you consider marketing to be part of a business plan? I do. Did you view or possess anything that might have been responsive to the public records request made in Exhibits 1 and 2? Let me start that over. I think I confused myself. Did you view or possess any records other than what is found in Exhibit 6 that you believe were responsive to the request made in Exhibits 1 and 2? I'm not certain about what Exhibit 6 is. Exhibit 6 is this. Exhibit 6 is the Did you view, let me rephrase it. Did you view anything other than bank statements and progress reports that you believed would be responsive in any way to the two public records requests that are the subject of this suit? No. I think, Mr. Ralph, I think you may have misspoke in one of your questions. I just want to clear it up because I don't want there to be any confusion, because it is the gist of this lawsuit. You asked specifically if all he looked at, I believe, was statements and checks that were identified in Exhibit 6. And I want to take it one step further. You also saw the progress
Yes.
reports that were identified in Exhibit 16, correct? Okay. There was a question that was asked, Mr. Lambert, that was phrased in a way to suggest that Joe Albritton was the recipient of a grant as chairman of the EDC. Did you ever see any evidence that Joe Albritton received a dime of
No.
this life sync money?
No.
Last question, with respect to the continuum assignment and modification, did LifeSync inform you in advance of the sale of assets to continue?
Yes.
Was that in writing?
Yes.
Was it in writing in advance of the sale, or did something come in writing later?
I'm pausing because I can't recollect the actual document, but I'm certain that it was done in advance.
That's all I have.
I had just one follow-up on that. If Joe Albritton didn't receive any money from the grant, why is he on the personal note guaranteeing the money? He's not getting any money from the grant.
He had every intention of becoming an owner of the company, but to my knowledge, it was never consummated.
But the personal note was consummated. So he'd still be responsible for the grant money even though he didn't get any money from the grant?
I think so.
Okay.
That's my opinion, but I believe it could be.
No questions? Okay, good time.